Spirit Bus 33, fam. Let's take a little journey together. Route 54, straight ahead.
Your spiritual beings having a human experience.
Thank you for being a vibe. Thank you for traveling through this earth experience, same time as me. Before we get started, just check in with yourself. If you're sitting, make sure you're comfortable, cozy. Grab some water. Let's stay hydrated. If you're moving around, make sure that you're slowing down, present, aware. Let's all take a deep breath in for 4, out for 7. Activating that parasympathetic nervous system, your calm down system. A quote to start off by Carl Jung. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you really are. Who you really are. That is a complex journey to become who you really are. Because, once you define yourself, you're like stepping outside of that true self, of your true self. I am an employee at such and such. Oh, that's what you do, but that's not who you are. What is so incredibly special about this is that each person, every single person is going to come to their own conclusion, and it's going to vary, from other people's, opinions, journeys. Perhaps we find pockets, of like-minded people, of course, but we're taking a step beyond the agreements that we make with others. Like, who are we independent of opinions, words, activities, labels, groups of people? Well, then I suppose that the question is going to need to be reframed from who are we to who do you want to be? So when we strip away all of the human labels, gender, sexual preference, religion, spiritual preferences, titles, economic statuses, etc., and our consciousness is just left observing this wild reality. Who do we want to be? Again, we can slip into, well, I want to have this career. I really want to own this thing, or I really enjoy this hobby, this relationship. I want my body to look this way. I want my skin to look this way. But again, these are things that you do external of you. Even your body, your avatar is external. So then who do you want to be while you're doing those external activities? Some may say, well, I want to be kind. I want to be strong. I want to be loved. So then I want to be is implying that we are not already those things. So I suppose the question then has to be transformed once again to what do I want to return to? What parts of me do I want to remember and honor? Because we're not born like knowing, well, I'm short or I'm tall or I have blonde hair, I have red hair. We're taught the language to describe our earthly experience. It appears to me, from observing my own children at very young ages, that we enter in with this unconditional love, this pure love. Like you can see it in the smile of these little tiny, humans. And then we're slowly separated by conditioning, shaping experiences, trauma, fear, society, etc. So, if we want to return to the purest state of being, then I guess it would have to just be love. But how do we be the embodiment of pure love in a world that, has so much darkness, with all the stressors, with the heartache, with not feeling safe? Well, to begin, we're going to take a little side quest off Route 54 onto Unconditional Self Love Boulevard. In reality, we can't be the embodiment of love until we learn to give it to ourselves. And this, Spirit Fam, it's quite the journey in itself, the ultimate one. You'll have to define or decide what providing love to yourself looks like first. This goes beyond pampering yourself with the facials, the pedicures, gym memberships, and the alike. Of course, those can be a way of loving yourself. But in between those, what is there? Of course, there is our mind, body, belief system practices. Those are helpful. But in between that, what is there? So, what I have come to is to love, is to be protective, to honor, to hold in high regard, to respect, cherish, then to have unconditional love for ourselves. We start with being protective of our energy. It would be to develop a way to surround ourselves with an armor, not like hypervigilance, but an armor of love. Maybe a bubble, a shield. I feel like we have the ability to use our auric field for this. If we visualize a barrier between harmful or unwanted energy and ourselves. I'm going to give you an example that is simple but yet powerful. Some years ago, I was camping at this small ravish setup, and I felt so excited to spend time flowing in some good wubs, some trippy energy. My avatar was decorated with some threads that I had purchased from a previous festival. And I was walking down the path and I felt good. I felt confident. I was covered in tie-dye from head to toe. And some young girls, well, they were probably adults. So some young adults walked by and one said, "Nice fanny pack." And I smiled and I said, "Thank you," only to recognize a few steps later that they were being condescending, sarcastic. So that past version of me became so self-conscious that not long after that interaction, I changed my outfit. And sometime after, I ended up gifting that fanny pack to another person. And I really did love that fanny pack. The point is that their energy was able to enter into my field of consciousness and attach, but only because I allowed it and made some sort of agreement that they were right. Years later, after doing a lot of healing, I realized that the experience was actually very important for me to show where the cracks were in my shield, and also to show me how much I really love my true innate self, because this self would never treat another person like that. But most importantly, learn the act of not giving a fuck. See, I had abandoned that some years before because I needed to reel it in some because I had really gone in the opposite direction and gave very few fucks. And then I went all the way over and started people pleasing. My shield was down. I was an open target for people to come in, play in my auric field, so to speak, control my emotions. Now, of course, I know like I'm not immune to this currently. And I don't want to say that I am because I don't want something similar to happen. But if it did, it would be a surprise and another opportunity to do more work. The point of me sharing this very simple yet vulnerable experience is to show an example of how important it is to learn to cultivate protective energy in our auric field so that another person's, well, their negative vibes, their unhealthy vibes, they don't have access to play with our energy or our agreements. So we can wear the fanny packs. We can choose no matter what. Like no matter what another person thinks or feels or their opinions. Well, so that we're honoring our energy, our creative processes without allowing someone to steer us away. Which honestly, to just get real about it, it's a sign of codependency because we can observe a difference of opinion, but we do not need to be codependent in it and take on that opinion. Which to not do so is an act of holding ourselves in high regard, respecting ourselves, cherishing ourselves. Now, of course, we're flexible to learn, grow, evolve with our shields up. Someone may have a difference of opinion, and we may agree, changing ourselves slowly with each agreement. An example is I used to send out my daily snaps and posts as titled Happy Today until I met someone who responded Happy Now. And I resonated with that and enjoyed it so much that I haven't looked back, and I send all of my daily, social media snaps and posts out with the title Happy Now. We want to be able to allow in what feels right and boundary up, shield up when there's some harmful projection, like energy coming from another person. And then with this unconditional love towards ourselves, we realize that shielding other people or, macro fear mongering is only part of what's needed because the grit is truly the intentional work that we do. The words we speak, the thoughts we entertain, because we carry a little rude sidekick in our mind with us. And as I speak that out loud, I want to say delete, 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 and reframe. For me, I want to say I carry an opinionated, feisty, rebellious option internally. Of course, you're going to have to get to know your own internal voice and describe it in ways that fit your experience. Mine, well, if I allowed full access to my mouth, it's a little rough around the edges. Perfect for situations when I needed to fully protect myself, perhaps dangerous circumstances that, I really need to show like, I'm not fucking around. But not needed at all now in this beautiful life I have built. But the memo hasn't quite been received, and, the presence is still there. Loving yourself is not entertaining the intrusive thoughts, the shit roommate according to Michael Singer, the parasite according to Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. in Toltec traditions, the pain body according to Eckhart Tolle. Well, the whatever you would like to label it. I do know that it's trainable, able to be transformed, recalibrated. A vibey soul in one of my TikTok lives, she called the noise in her head her spirit team. And I quite enjoy that. And now when that feisty part pops up, I kind of envision it perhaps maybe one of my unhealed ancestors who only knows how to scrap about their feelings or is just trying to make sense of their emotions and words flying out like fuck and stop being a dick. Perhaps sending some love to that version of self to help heal, evolve. Perhaps that is true ancestral healing. There are many other, internal processes that are protective. That intuitive knowing, the internal dialogue that encourages you. It does kind of feel like a team in there. And that is just the automatic experiences that we're having. It is the intentional experience we're having that I feel does the most healing, provides the most space for unconditional self love. The intentional one that continues to show up for ourselves, even when we would rather do the unhealthy thing. The intentional rewiring of traumatized responses. The intentional ending of generational trauma. The words and actions that we don't match energy. It's the ones that stay vibrating in love, not a doormat type of love, but a loving energy like towards, especially towards ourselves, even when we've fallen short. And with this internal state of being, we feel a return to self start to emerge. Our choices reflecting love, our intentional internal dialogue reflecting love, our interactions shielding up so that only unconditional self-love cup can be filled, our org filled, mended, strong. So as we turn back on to Route 54, I encourage you to sit for a moment, if you're not already, with a light tap slowly on your forehead, left, right, left, right. I invite you to repeat after me. I recognize my worth. I recognize my strength. I recognize my courage. And I have all of these with me on this earth experience. The love I have for myself multiplies every time I recognize its presence. Dear fam, dear spirit fam, it is that love. It's that love that is your shield. We're not carrying shame when we fall short. Those times provide us with more wisdom, resulting in more growth, and I think the healing of our ancestors. So perhaps we carry them with us everywhere we go. A reading from the Osho deck. But first, before we get that started, is a reminder to look at your thoughts instead of from them. When those intrusive, unwanted, whether it be, what science proclaims them to be, or whether it is a spirit team in there, an unhealed ancestor, an unhealed version of ourselves, a traumatized version, whatever the case may be, whatever agreement you'd like to make, is looking at them, not from them. You can sit in a movie theater. You can, pretend that you're observing those thoughts on a screen, and sitting back, moving back further and further. Because when we look at them, it's way less likely that we're going to get sucked up into the emotion of them. And the first card for the reading here, first card, success, number 6, for those that like to keep track of numbers. Let's recognize the successes in your life. I think something really important to do that I comes up with a lot of these cards, is to look back. There was a version of yourself that really wanted your today self. They really wanted all the achievements that you had. They wanted to be who you are today. So recognize is that, you created this through the hard work that you've done on yourself, through all the action steps that you've taken to move closer and closer to your favorite version of yourself. Second card, guidance. Whatever your belief system is, lean in. Lean in, ask for help. If you're not sure who you're talking to, cool. I mean, most of us don't exactly know. And that's okay. We don't have to know who we're talking to. You can talk to, whatever word meets your needs: universe, God, source, Jesus, ancestors. I would say healed ancestors before that. Put in that word healed. But whatever it is that resonates with you, is don't forget to ask. Ask your angels, your spirit team, your guides, your plant guides, your animal guides, the entities and beings that are here guiding you, helping you through this earth experience. Or reach out to your earth support system. But is knowing that you're not alone. Or reach out to someone who inspires you. Last card is conditioning. It's recognizing that we are releasing versions of ourselves that felt like we had to fit in, that felt like we had to take on other people's opinions as our own, that felt like we needed to feel the same way as the people around us because somehow we learned that feeling our own opinions and having our own sense of self was wrong. So releasing that conditioning, releasing the conditioning of the society that somehow our productivity equals our worth, that somehow the more that we do, the more worth that we have, instead of how we show up, how we love ourselves, and how we love others. And making sure that when we cultivate these things for ourselves is that we're trying to ripple it out to everyone around us. Because we've most definitely have conditioning in how we see other people, especially giving it to those that are the closest to us, the ones that know our raw version of ourselves, perhaps our romantic relationships or some family, where we have acted out that pain body, like Eckhart Tolle says, or we have allowed that unhealed ancestor to take over, is recognizing that those spaces need care and love and attention, not abandonment or neglect. We'll end with this card from Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., the Four Agreements deck here. It says, be impeccable with your word. When you hear an opinion and believe it, you make an agreement, and it becomes part of your belief system. The only thing that can break this agreement is to make a new one based on truth. Only the truth has the power to set you free. So, Spirit Fam, it is time to find our own truth. It's time to allow ourselves to live in our own truth and to break these agreements. And that, I believe, is how we truly find out who we are. At least who we are during this earth experience. It's quite a mystery to many of us who we are after. But that's the adventure in all of this, right? Until next time.